May I say something about Deshaun Watson? I
Please do.
tweeted about it this week, but I want to elaborate on it. From what I understand, he's very unhappy in Houston because the owner said he would have input on who the general manager and the coach would be. And I wrote a tweet saying, I never heard of a player having that kind of influence and input. And a lot of people were angry at me and said, but the owner had promised him that. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. If the owner promised it, he should have followed through. My point was, why would you even promise that?
Right.
This is a team game. How all of a sudden does the quarterback, as good as he is, but he's a quarterback who's won nothing. How all of a sudden does the quarterback get into management? I mean, that's a clear conflict of interest, and it's giving him too much power, and it's separating him from the people in the locker room. So the owner was a knucklehead to offer it. I can tell you something. Years and years ago, Magic Johnson, who obviously was one of the greatest players who ever lived, and I guess was a nice man. I mean, I don't know him. He got Paul Westhead fired as the coach of the Lakers. Now, I know Westhead. He's a really nice man. And Iggy, a few days later, I was in Al Addle's office. Now, everybody understands Al Addle is a all-time great guy. And we were chatting, and he just was shaking his head, and he said, Lowell, that young man in Los Angeles just got a good coach fired. He said, I don't understand that. How does that happen? Now, he's talking about Magic Johnson. But that means a young man, right? He said, a player gets a coach fired? He said, it's like the league is standing on its head. He was appalled 30 years ago. I'm appalled by this. I'm not angry at Deshaun Watson, although I think he's got a hell of a nerve. I'm angry at the owner who's such a schmuck. You never give a player that power.
Okay, just a sec. These are the owners that said the inmates can't run the asylum. So it's interesting that it's happening here because these are like the most, they're not exactly trying to empower players on Houston. And from afar, I see what you're saying. Watson seems way out of line. Like, why would you even ask to have input on these things? On the other hand, when you really look at what's happening with the Houston Texans, they're the worst organization in the NFL right now. It's agreed. They hired this guy named Jack Easterby last year. I don't think you know who he is. He's the executive vice president of football operations. Apparently, there's a whole long expose that came out this week that he has a habit of making people in the organization take his hand and pray for enlightenment. Like I don't really appreciate that Deshaun Watson is going on Twitter and kind of like saying he's mad. He should just request a trade behind closed doors. I think that's fair. Players are allowed to request a trade. And if he feels that the Texans are an incompetent organization, get the hell out. So if he requests a trade, I think I'm okay with that. I wouldn't want to be working for a guy who made me hold his hand and pray for enlightenment. That's a deal breaker. No, I'm not holding your hand.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. So another interpretation would be he's trying to become such a pest that they want to get rid of him.
And look, do what you got to do because he's such a good player. I think they almost can't trade him. So he might have to do what James Harden did. And you know what, dude, go ahead. If it's that bad of an organization and you have to hold the guy's hand and pray for enlightenment, maybe it's time. I think if we were covering this team, we might have a more informed opinion of what Deshaun Watson's doing.
Iggy, is he a top 5 quarterback?
Borderline. Yeah, pretty much.
Sure.
This, Josh Dubow? Of course you know Josh Dubow.
No,
he watches everyone who doesn't know Josh Dubow. He covers the 49ers and the Raiders for AP, and he turned me on to this thing called Sys Data Hub. It's just this advanced stats website, and for whatever it's worth, they ranked him the number 1 quarterback in the league last year, 2020. Just one site. So he's very, very good. The fact that they went 4-12 with him is kind of amazing. And if the Jets could get him, I'm sure they'd be real happy. The thing is, he wanted the Texans to interview Robert Saleh. They wouldn't even bring him in for an interview. They should have interviewed Robert Saleh.
But again, it's not his business.
No, it's not. No, the thing that gives him a leg to stand on is the enlightenment guy. That guy, scary. Mr. Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
When Mark Jackson was the coach of the Warriors, he was always talking about God. I mean, you'd go into a post-game press conference, and all of a sudden you're talking about God. And I just want to know, like, what happened on the pick and roll?